Get started. I am Nicole Morel. I am the communications specialist in the Office of Sustainability. I'll share who else is with us in just a moment, but I'm going to kick things off and get us started before I hand it over to our data experts. So what we're going to cover today, you'll meet the Mitos team that's going to be telling you all about the sustainability data pool. Then we're going to talk about how the data in the sustainability data pool connects to a lot of the goals in our previous climate action plan, and fast forward the newest climate action plan, and how the data pool can help support climate goals as well as your research and projects related to that. We're going to go into actually using the data pool. So we will have a quick demo of the data pool, and then to get everyone engaged, send you off into some small groups and have a scavenger hunt so we can test things out, see what we can find, and then get some real-time feedback and questions about how to use the tool. Second to last, we will have grad student Ippoliti Delatolis. She's going to join us and share how she's used the data pool for a number of projects in some courses she's taken at MIT, provide some real world experience. And then we will wrap up with really kind of any more questions, feedback, and what you think the data pool could really benefit from having, layout, thoughts, really any feedback you have. If you have any questions during the event, feel free to chat them and we will get to them either during the event or follow up on email if it's a more challenging, excellent question. So I'm going to share it over to Steve, who's going to talk about, well, actually, I'm gonna move the slides for Steve, but Steve in our office, actually, let me introduce Steve first. So we have Steve is our sustainability project manager, who's going to talk about the connections to the climate action plan. Stu is our sustainability data scientist, who's going to dig into the data pool and send you all on your scavenger hunt. I already talked about Ippoliti, who's a grad student who uses the data pool, and then Rebecca Fowler, who is our senior administrative assistant in Mitos, who's gonna, any technical issues you can put in the chat or chat her directly, and she will help you out and she'll get us in and out of our breakout rooms. So I'm gonna hand it off to Steve, who's gonna tell us a little bit more about how the data pool connects to our goals in the climate action plan.
All right. Thank you, Nicole, and welcome everybody. It's great to see many of you. I think there's a couple familiar faces, but lots of new faces, which is always great, which means that word is getting out and it's getting easier for you to find us so that we can work with you and sort of welcome you into sort of the MIT sustainability universe and help us figure out solutions and strategies for meeting our climate goals and sustainability goals broadly. So I just wanted to take a quick minute before we turn it over to Stu to give you a sense of the data pool in relationship to MIT's climate action plan. And being MIT, no surprise that MIT's action plan for addressing climate is multifaceted and is deploying and aligning the research sort of agenda at MIT, as well as the educational dimensions and what we're actually doing on campus. And they're all sort of based on and will be measured by sort of a rigorous sort of data focused dimension. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the climate action plan and how it relates to the data pool and how the data pool can support our work. Next slide, please. And hopefully give you all some sort of transparency into the work that we're doing on campus and provide sort of resources and tools to help you sort of dig in and learn more about what the sources of our emissions are and what the strategies are for reducing them, and do some research or projects on your own in terms of measuring how we're doing on campus. So sort of fundamentally, just recently, MIT launched its second climate action plan, which really takes some very aggressive positions in moving MIT forward in its climate action program and really looking at what we can do on our own campus to reduce emissions. And the climate portal, so at climate.mit.edu, is the central sort of site for not only the climate action plan, but a lot of the resources and associated work that's going on across all the spectrums of research and education and campus. So I encourage you to explore the climate.mit.edu site and learn more about MIT's holistic strategy. And embedded in there, you'll find the actual climate plan, and encourage you to dig in there. Next, please. And sort of fundamentally within this program, as it relates to how we operate our campus, are a couple of new goals for MIT, which is really getting us to align and pull in the same direction to reduce MIT's emissions, and trying to figure out what different strategies are most effective for large research organizations. And those goals, two of those specific overarching goals, are essentially to achieve a net zero carbon emissions on campus by 2026, and then with a goal of eliminating all emissions by 2050. And those are aligned with the international science-based targets for what the globe is looking and needs to achieve. So that's sort of an overarching goals that are guiding some of our work. Okay, next. And just in terms of sharing other resources and putting this in perspective, this is the Sustainability's Office website, so sustainability.mit.edu. And it's where is one of several areas that you can go to track progress on all of MIT's sustainability activities. And in the Zero Carbon Campus area of our website is where you'll find more information on the tracking and progress of towards our goals every year, and lots of great information about sustainability on campus and ways to get involved. So I encourage you also to check this website out as well. You'll find lots of great information. Okay, next. And then within our office is where is one sort of platform to launch into the data pool and accessing the different data resources that we have. And so there's the area of data and metrics, which I encourage you also to dig around on, and Stu will dive a bit deeper. But this is where you could navigate to some of the data resources that we share in the data pool, and updates on new developments for that. So, okay, next. And lastly, this is just sort of an example. This is on our website, and this is showing a bit of how we are using our overall campus data that we collect and manage to track progress over time. And then what Stu's going to show you is a way to actually get into the associated sort of numbers, energy use numbers, as well as greenhouse gas emissions numbers associated with our overall campus activities, and then be able to drill down and look at the building level and see what buildings are using what types of energy at what times, and get a sense for sort of what the overall picture looks like, and then what are the constituent parts of it. So I think with that, I'll transition to Stu, who will give you sort of a walkthrough about the actual data pool. So I think that's it, Nicole.
You are correct. Okay. I'll hand it off to Stu and stop sharing so he can kind of take us on a tour.
Great. Thank you both. Yeah, let me just pull this up real quick. And yeah, so as Nicole said earlier, my name is Stu Eiler. I'm the data scientist with the Office of Sustainability. We wanted to take just a couple of minutes to introduce you, or maybe reintroduce you to the data pool, and show you some of the content that's on here, just give you a brief overview. And then we can talk about the scavenger hunt game that we'll be playing in a few minutes. So just as kind of a high level overview, the data pool is a platform that provides a centralized place to access visualizations and data sets around the theme of sustainability at MIT. It was created several years ago. We continue to try to build it out, increase the content, and increase the usability of what's on here. You'll see at the top these main tabs, and aside from the about and the contributors, the two main parts of the data pool are the visualizations and then the download data. So I'll talk about each of these briefly. So if you click on visualizations, you can see them listed here, and they're more or less broken down by different sustainability topic areas. So you'll see here we have Energize MIT, climate resiliency, commuting at the Institute, which is about transportation, and then we move on to waste, water, and some other topic areas. So I won't jump into any of these in too much detail now. I know Ippoliti will be talking about Energize MIT a little bit later on. And then of course, in the scavenger hunt, you all will have a chance to take a look at these in a little bit more detail. I will just point out here though, if you want to search for specific kinds of information, you can of course just scroll through and see what's there, but then you can also search at the top. So for instance, if we are looking for information about parking, you could type in parking here. You can see I've done that before. Click on filter, and then it brings up a visualization here, for instance, about commuting. And then if you were to jump in here, you could scroll down and start looking through the data and see what's available. And then I'll just click over briefly to the download data side. And so this is where we have some actual data sets to download. These are corresponding to some of the visualizations that were on the other page that we are just looking at. This includes building footprint information, which is like outlines of buildings and maps, energy use data, which relates to the Energize MIT visualization. And then we also have some recycling and solid waste data, some water use data, and then some weather data here. And so for the purposes of the scavenger hunt today, we're primarily going to ask questions where you can answer those questions by looking through these visualizations here. But we did want to point out that these data sets are available for download. So I think I'll leave it at that and let you all explore, and then we can chat more about all of this, of course. So maybe I'll stop sharing my screen and I can let you reshare, Nicole, and then I can introduce the scavenger hunt game. So what we've done is we've put together a few different questions, like I said, that can be answered by looking at the site. Some of them are written here and we can quickly go through them. But the idea, as Nicole said earlier, we can break into some small groups, take a few minutes to look through these. I think we have 10 minutes set aside to do this. And then we'll reconvene as a group afterwards. We can go over what we are hoping that you all would find. And then of course, we want to hear your feedback on what the experience was like trying to look up this information. And I can also take these questions and paste them into the chat in a moment so that they're there once we go into the breakout rooms. So I don't know, I guess we can very quickly go over these. I know you have these across a couple of slides, I think, Nicole, but basically we're trying to pick out questions that cover a lot of different topic areas that range from buildings, you can see here, public transit for these couple of ones. And then I think on the next slide, there's a few more about waste audits, greenhouse gas emissions, and there may actually even be one more slide after this one. Yeah, I think these might be the end of them. About some download data, there's one on trees and then one around climate resiliency modeling. So let me find these and I can paste them in the chat. And I don't know if Nicole or Steve, you wanted to add anything else at this point, or if anyone had any questions before we move on.
I'm just happy to see if anyone has any questions. I'm actually going to try these out myself as a non-data person, see if I can really get it done.
For sure.
And I think Rebecca is going to send us into, I think, just 2 small groups, and we can work together, and we'll have around 10 minutes, but we'll, us from the Office of Sustainability will each be in a group, so we can definitely just figure out if we need more time or everyone's a whiz at this. So if you want to send us into groups, Rebecca.
Great. Well, I hope everyone had fun with that. We were thinking maybe we would, Nicole's still sharing her screen, we can just run through them quickly and let you know what we were thinking of in terms of the answers for these, and then we want to hear from you. So maybe let's quickly just go through them and then we can come back. So starting with this first one, what level of LEED certification does Building 66 have? We are looking for gold here, and we have a visualization around buildings there, and that's where you could find that answer. These next couple are come from that commuting at the Institute visualization we talked about earlier. How many people use Access MIT public transit benefit on June 1st, 2018? And we are looking for either 8,480 is the raw count or 8,795 is the trend. Those were the 2 numbers for that. And then for the bonus question, asking about people entering at Kendall MIT, we are looking for 2,125 is the answer there.
My group got the bonus question.
Yay, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. And then the next one is, this was from the campus waste audits visualization there. So this is asking about a 2020 waste audit that took place at SANP. And there was a tab in there that had different contaminants and recycling. And the first one there with the most was coffee cups. So that's what we were looking for there. And then the next one is from the Energize MIT visualization, asking about greenhouse gas emissions. And there's a tab in there that shows them year by year. And we are asking for fiscal year 2019. And that answer was 141,629 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Want to jump to the next one? Cool. And then how many energy use data files are available for download in the data pool? So this one actually was the one that we had asking to go to the download data tab. And if you click into there and go under energy use data, there's 12 different files that are there, and they're broken down by calendar year. And then the second to last one here is about trees, since we have an MIT trees visualization. And at the top, there's a list that lets you select, filter down, I think. And if you scroll to the bottom of that list, there's one that starts with Z and it's Zelkova, I think is how you pronounce that. And then the final one, this is a little bit harder, comes from our climate resiliency dashboard. If you open that up, there's a bunch of different tabs with different maps. And one of those tabs had ones where you could click on different buildings and it would show you different water depths for different scenarios. So if you clicked on building 10 and looked at the 2030 10-year storm scenario, what we are looking for there is 0.44 feet. And that was the last one. So we're interested to hear, I think, from you all what your thoughts were, any difficulties that you ran into, general things, and then we can move on to hear from Ippoliti. Was there anything people thought was particularly interesting? Any particular challenges in looking through these, ones that you just weren't able to find for whatever reason?
We had one question on the filtering.
Sure.
Whether the filtering by checking boxes was working correctly.
Oh, it was my impression that it was, but I could double check on it. The way that it's supposed to work, I can say, is that each of the visualizations has a couple of little icons underneath them. So it's not based on the text or what the visualization is called. It's just those icons that are underneath. And so each one of those clicking should correspond to one of those icons. But I can take a look at that and see maybe if something's not working. You could ask our consultant about it.
I think it's when you select multiple, it's only picking the ones that match all of them as opposed to the ones that match any of them. So if I wanted to do like non-regulated waste and biking, for example, which I'm assuming there's no overlap on, it's clear. It's like it's empty because there's nothing that has both of those.
Got it. That must be what it is. And what I'm hearing maybe is that it would be more intuitive, potentially, if people select multiple, they want to see anything that matches any of them. And that's definitely something that we could change. So that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Stu, I'm curious how often data is updated in the different visualizations, and does it depend on the source and stuff like that?
Yeah. Oh, great. Great question. Yeah, I meant to mention that a little bit, where the data is coming from and the different visualizations. So yeah, so the different visualizations have different data sources and they're updated at different frequencies. So a couple of the ones that we looked at in the scavenger hunt, like Energize MIT and the campus water use visualizations, the former is updated every month and the latter is updated quarterly, because that's just how the data updating and billing cycles happen at MIT, and that's what those are based on. So those are pretty regularly updated. The transportation dashboard is another example. The parking data we get pretty regularly. It was happening a little bit different during the pandemic when parking is free, because you didn't have to swipe, and so it was being recorded in a different way. But now that we're back to non-free parking again, that'll continue to be updated in the way that it was before. The MBTA data is a little bit different because we have to get it from them, of course. It's an outside party. And that makes it a little bit more complicated because there's a data feed that needs to be set up, and it's something that needs to be maintained, and that has been a challenge for us to make sure those data keep coming in. And then there are other ones. I'll just mention one more, or two more actually, who would fit in this category, like the campus waste audits visualization and the resiliency dashboard is two examples. They're both being updated, but just when we get new data periodically. So when we have a new waste audit, maybe we'll add a new tab to that waste audits visualization. And with the resiliency dashboard, when we do more modeling scenarios, or when we update the ones that we have, it'll be updated, but it's not necessarily on like a every month or every other month kind of basis.
Hi, this is Wei Li from EHS. I'm the person running the Safe and Sustainable Lab program. Sorry that I missed that scavenger hunt just now. I have some technical issue with my laptop. So by the time I rejoin the group, it's all over. So my biggest question for you is for the data pool, is there any data that are specific to the lab? Or do you need our program to contribute some data that you can plug into the data pool?
Great question. So with regards to the safe and sustainable labs in particular, you were asking?
Yes, yeah.
So there is one, there are a couple of waste visualizations there. So one is material matters, which is much higher level and only covers non-hazardous waste. But then we do have a hazardous chemicals dashboard there. I think it might be, I have to double check what the name of what it is called. It's called hazardous waste dashboard. And we have been updating that one. And as of now, that's only available to EHS program managers and members of the Safe and Sustainable Labs Task Force. So it's not something that's available to the MIT community at large. And that's the case with the medical waste dashboard there as well. All of the other visualizations on that page are available to all members of the MIT community with their Kerberos login.
I see. And if there's any data that you would like us to collect through our Safe and Sustainable Lab program, and just let us know, then we can figure out how we can contribute.
That would be great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, if there's no other questions at this time, I do want to hand over to Ippoliti. So she's joining us because part of the reason we held this is to engage students in how to use the data pool for capstone projects or self-driven projects in their coursework. And Ippoliti's done it for a few times for a course that's actually hosted, was co-lectured by the Director of Sustainability for MIT, Julie Newman. So I will hand it off to her to just tell us a little bit about how she used Energize MIT to support her coursework.
Yeah, hi, everyone. I'm Ippoliti. I'm sorry, I'm in the lab right now, but I can still have the mask here. It's okay. There are not too many people. I will share my screen so that I can just briefly show mainly how I used Energize MIT, but also like overall a bit how it works. So there are a lot of tabs, like we went into them during the scavenger hunt for those who were here. The first tab that I find useful is this energy system overview. You can change the calendar year that you're looking at, but basically it tells you what type of fuel we buy either directly to campus or the central utility plant. So we were doing a team project that was on solving for carbon neutrality at MIT. So we really had to find ways to get MIT's carbon emissions to zero. So this was already super useful to understand like what type of energy we use, how it is divided, like into steam, electricity, chilled water, and that kind of stuff. And we associated this with the second tab here, which we used, sorry, it timed out. Yeah, which we used during the scavenger hunt to see, well, okay, so we buy this much gas, how much does that correspond to in terms of emissions? And, you know, how much does electricity correspond to in terms of emissions? So when you hover over this, you can see like it says GHG in metric tons of CO2 equivalent, and you can see how much that is. So for example, if your idea is to say, okay, we want to get to carbon neutral, so we'll wait for the electric grid to get clean. Well, like you can clearly see that that's not going to solve most of your problems because, well, you still use a ton of gas to heat and cool your buildings. So right now, you know, that's kind of how we used this general overview here. Then there are a bit more finer stuff related to buildings. There, I guess it depends on the type of project someone is doing, but here you can see the GHG emissions associated with each building. You can also normalize the GHG emission per square footage and also just look at the energy usage intensity. And then you can also filter the buildings by type of building. So like lab or office or that kind of stuff. So if you're doing a project, say on safe and sustainable labs, you can look at, okay, lab and mixed use and lab dominant buildings, how much GHG does that amount to? And then the last tab, which I found super useful for my project. So I did another project on the energy cost of computing at MIT. And so computing uses a ton of electricity. And so this tab here, it allows you to see how much chilled water, steam, and electricity each building uses. And so, for example, if I filter this by electricity, and I can also normalize this per square footage of the building, then it's going to rank them. And you can see, if it loads, yeah, you can see that like the building that's the most electricity intensive is W91, which is actually the building that hosts the servers. So this already gives you a great overview, and you actually have, you know, the number, like the amount of kilowatt hours that are consumed. And if you combine this with like this tab that tells you, you know, how much 1 kilowatt hour equates to in terms of GHG emissions, you can already get like really fine estimates of the GHG emissions associated with like electricity, chilled water, and all that in specific buildings. So that's overall how I used Energize MIT for my projects.
Thanks so much, Ippoliti. That's great. And as someone who has not dug that deep in Energize MIT myself, that's really informative. And now I want to know who's doing what in the different buildings. So thank you. I think at this point, that pretty much covers the main part of our program. So if there's any more questions, feedback, ideas, anything, now is a great time to share them. Also, one sad note, so Stu, who is our data scientist, this is actually his last day with us. So Steve is going to be very helpful. You can reach out to Steve, and then I'll share, it's a very easy to remember email address, but I'll share the email address that if you have any questions about the data pool, want to see different data sets in there, or just having technical issues, or something's being weird, please let us know. It's a very involved machine, I guess we'll say. So always, if there's something you find, please let us know. But if anyone else has questions, feel free to jump in.
I'd be curious to know, for those who did join us, whether they had something in mind that they were looking to accomplish, or were more curious, and whether this session has helped sort of navigate or give you some further sort of direction into what you were looking to do.
I personally I just was curious. I know I have logged on to the website before, but I was just very curious to learn more about it. And I found the Scavenger. So I just wanted to delve back into it again. And when I saw this opportunity to review the data pool, I said, oh, great. And I found that the Scavenger hunt just really, really great in trying to navigate, figure out how to navigate the data pool. So that to me was incredibly beneficial.
Cool.
And I'm excited to explore it further, given this overview and taste, this taste of what's there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Just a quick question is like, say if you want to like publish paper or do the research project, does it allow us to use the data pool and share it to the public, or is more like for the internal use, or we need to apply the permission from like CUIs or other, or MITOs? Just a general thought, because I think the data is really helpful for my project to know, like, can I publish it? What's the issue? I mean, privacy to use this data. Thank you.
Yeah, I could speak to that. Thanks for that question. That's a great question. I don't think that any CUI's approval would be needed. I don't think anything of that sort. I'm not sure when I said this, if you were here yet or not, but everything is accessible only to the MIT community. So it's not public information, but we do encourage people to use it for their research. So I would say 100% please use it for your research. That's one of the reasons that it's here. I guess my one piece of advice would be if you're using it for like a class project or something like that, that's not necessarily going to be public. I don't think there's any concern around that. Depending on how you're using the data and how it would be published, one recommendation I would have is to potentially just email this email address that's here before you move forward with publishing, just to double check with us, because it's not something that we make public. I know in other research cases, for instance, there's, we were just looking at it, there's very detailed data, let's say at the monthly or the building level, which we don't publish that data. Maybe somebody uses that for their research, but then the results that they publish are at a more aggregated level, that type of thing. So I think there might be questions around that kind of thing. But in any case, we don't want to dissuade you at all from using it for research. That's what it's there for. So I don't know if Nicole or Steve, if you have other thoughts on that, but that would just be my 2 cents.
No, I agree. It's certainly just the referencing the source of the data and not sharing the original underlying data sets all that we would ask. And if you have any question whatsoever, just shoot any of us an email or that data pool at MIT for questions about what would be okay to publish. But certainly the derivatives of your research are your business. Mm-hmm. And share them back to us. So that's the other piece, is that we love to hear how people are using it, and either what the result was, and even if it's just informal or desk-based work to figure out something that you're working on. We always are interested to know how you used it and what you concluded from it, because we're learning as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I use my course project. It's very helpful. Thanks.
Awesome.
Great.
Ansel.
If there's no other. Oh,
I'm curious. I keep putting Ansel on the spot. I don't know why, because he's a new face to me. I'm curious what brought you in today.
I mean, I'm personally curious about some of the public transportation parts of things, but I'm also on UA Sustain, and I'm really hopefully I'm going to be able to apply some of the data from the data pool to really enforce some of the initiatives going on, just because I feel like that's feedback that we get a lot from admin and such, where they're like, where's the data behind whatever this request is that you're asking? Yeah. So hopefully being able to leverage the data to kind of support more of the requests.
Awesome. That's exactly,
and
we're subject to that same scrutiny.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the whole activity of the scavenger hunt. I feel like now I can navigate everything and I have a good sense for where everything is. So I hope to use it.
yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, I've been with Mitos for 2 years, and I've only seen on the surface of the data pool. So it was awesome for me to do the scavenger hunt too. So I'm glad other people really enjoyed it. All right, if there's no more questions or feedback, thank you guys for taking time out of your day to join us and explore the data pool. Please, if you find it useful, share the link with your friends. I mean, part of the reason we had this is, you kind of end up with this small subset of people that know about it, and there's more people we need to reach, but it's, how do you reach the people who don't know about the thing you're trying to tell them about? So if you could spread it around, that's much appreciated, because we're always trying to improve it and just get more people to use it and get benefit from it. So.
And if you have any suggestions after we get off this, is just to shoot an email to that data pool email, like whether it's data types or new data sets applied differently, any other suggestions or critiques about sort of what improvements you'd like to see, shoot us a note.
Great. Thanks,
awesome.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Good luck, Stu.
Thank you.